Okay, so we've got a few minutes for questions for our esteemed panel. Same as previously, if you have a question, please put your hand up. We've got a roving mic. I'd like to have your name and a nice, concise question. Who's going to ask the first question? I thought that was nearly a hand there. Cool, you're making me work this afternoon. I'm going to start off with you, Zach, actually, because I'm going to ask a predatory question. A lot of the data that you gathered for that report, how accessible is it in its raw form, or have you condensed it into an accessible form for others to access?
That's a great question. So the platform that you've seen that we're trying to use as an engagement tool, there's basically for every entry, for every piece of data, there's a log where we gather the evidence and we do the sifting. So you can see very transparently whether or not something was deemed circular or whether or not the benefits were deemed strong enough to be included in our model. So if someone's interested, they can dig really deep into what sits behind the front of this, if that's us.
Yeah, no. I'll be digging very deep into it. Great, okay, thank you very much for that. You guys are really... question in the middle, please. Name and nice, concise question.
Sylvester Saria. I'd like to ask the gentleman from
Rob.
Britain, Rob. There was a figure of 1.8 hectares per household or person for sustainable land use. Is there a projection for how much that might decrease with more intensive organic and intensive developments?
Well, it's not static because the Earth is obviously not a static system. But no, it's Weizsäcker and Rees's work. So if you look at it, it's the ecological footprint. If you basically divide all the Earth's productive capacity by the population, the land, of course, that's what you have: 1.8 global hectares. That changes pretty much probably on a daily basis. And with queryable theory of the planet, there's some really nice stuff going on from the space scientists in the States. We might be able to map that literally on a probably half-hourly basis, even some of the stuff that's going on. But it will change, because obviously if we live within the means and the carrying capacity, then in theory we'd be sustainable. Or is it possible to live? So if you look roughly, it's about 2 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent you'd need to produce to be. So the average maybe. African is maybe sustainable in the broadest sense. America's 25 tons, we're 12.5. So, roughly on the planetary level, we're about 21 to 23% beyond what the Earth's carrying capacity is. And that's fine, but there's one thing I'll add to that as well. If James Lovelock, who I've got a great admiration for, talks about disruptive environmental change. So there's 9 billion people on the planet in 25. He said disruptive environmental trends. Trends you can predict, disruptions less so. Support about 1 billion people. So, big provocation.
Thank you, Rob. And we've got a question from the newly crowned #1 influencer in waste management as of last night, Kat Fletcher. Kat.
Oh, gosh, David, stop it. Just a query on the last speaker. Sorry, I missed your name. Zach. So you said you're lacking evidence that recycling or reuse creates employment. Is that right? I kind of wanted to follow up on that.
Yeah, please do. So we don't claim that we found every piece of evidence around recycling or circular economy projects that exist. We worked with Ellen MacArthur Foundation and partners within Arup to research as much as we could. We did find a lot of qualitative evidence that suggests so. We did find some quantitative evidence that did suggest employment growth. But from an economist's point of view, a lot of those studies don't account for things like displacement of other jobs or replacement or types of changes in the quality of jobs. So we weren't able to include it on the quality of the data factor, but we keep it as a qualitative narrative throughout the engagement. But if you have more data, please talk to me.
Okay, yeah, no, it's interesting. I'll talk to you after. Thank you.
Data and information, 2 very different things, but yes. Okay, I'm just going to ask Richard and Matthias a very quick question, which is we've talked a lot about data, we've talked a lot around new build, actually, particularly. For me, one of the challenges in the circular city is actually looking at the existing infrastructure and the existing stock. How do we approach managing that? Because we can do some really good stuff with anything new. It's the stuff that we've currently got which is going to be more problematic. Have you got any thoughts on that?
I guess it's a tricky problem when you have to decide whether it's better to demolish something and reclaim material when the energetic cost of maintaining the building is unsustainably high.
So, a simple equation. How does that fit into historic?
Well, I suppose we like to give ourselves the luxury of preserving buildings that we find attractive or innovative, and it is part of culture.
Okay. Matthias, any further thoughts? And you'll have the final thoughts on the panel.
The final thoughts. Yeah, for one thing, we actually need to know what's available and when it becomes available, and also the conditions. So we need to get rid of all the dirty stuff, let's say all the asbestos, the PCP. There's a lot of stuff out there, and actually, I don't know how it is in the UK, but in Germany, nobody knows, or it's not really possible to actually define what's out there. So for one, we need to get rid of all the stuff, but also we need to raise the acceptance, for example, for recycled concrete or recycled materials. I know how I can speak for Germany, for example, so there's not really a high acceptance because it's for recycled concrete is inferior, for example, even if it's not, but that's the perception. So there needs to be a change, but also a change within the client and the architect or the planners. They need to tell the investors, for example, what they can do or how they can improve, because the client normally he doesn't know about those things.
So a very simple whole system change.
Well, I don't think it's simple, but I mean it takes everyone along the supply chain, so it's not just one way. So.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. I would like to just introduce to the stage Duncan Baker-Brown, who, as the curator of this stage, is going to give us a little bit of a wrap-up for the whole 3 days. Duncan.
I've got about 1.5 minutes. So this wouldn't have happened without the support of a lot of people. We've had 57 speakers over 3 days. And there have been a lot of common themes, actually. The sharing knowledge, combining commercial activity with research activity. This is a huge thing. You saw with the guy from Metabolic that had to go, he's a consultant in the market economy. He's doing well, so what does he need? He needs research to back up what he's doing. And this is what we do at the University of Brighton. We do it well. So I'm not going to go on about University of Brighton too much, but we're doing a lot of work around research and enterprise. We're combining practice with research. So I thought I was really gratified that Michael Braungart seemed to appreciate that provincial city like Brighton was doing a lot of work. I need to thank University of Brunel, Rob, even. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Amsterdam Trade, who brought over 20 of our speakers. Thank you to my university, Responsible Futures. That's the research arm of the sustainability research. My head of school, who's in the audience, Professor Robert Mall, who supports what we do. We teach research and practice just like he does. At London Waste and Recycling Board, the BRE, Jilly, put your hand up. Thank you very much. Zero Waste Scotland, and my own practice, BBM, Closing the Loop. We wouldn't have done it without all these people. I've already had a lot of people saying this is going to be bigger and better next year. I hope we can carry on talking to each other and sharing the knowledge, big data, little data, experiences. And thank you very much.